Trying to keep up with every announced, confirmed PSVR2 game is practically impossible, and every week reveals another handful of rumors and another developer saying that they have plans to bring their game to Sony's next-gen headset, just looming on the horizon. And really, at this point, any developer making a VR game absolutely has their sights set on PSVR2, so expect a lot more announcements to be coming very soon. But for the time being, here's every PlayStation VR2 game that's confirmed to be in development. Instead of porting over the original 2MD VR football from PSVR1, developer True and Pixel decided instead to port their full-fledged sequel, 2MD VR Football All-Star Unleashed, over to PSVR2. It features updated visuals, animations, character models, not to mention a whole slew of new game modes. But the best news is that if you own the original on PSVR1, you'll get All-Star Unleashed for an extremely discounted price. The announcement of Affected the Asylum excites me probably more than it should. The team over at Fallen Planet Studios knows how to scare me, and getting to explore an even more realistic environment, this time with up to 3 friends, should be awesome. The PSVR1 was a great place for horror games, so seeing that there are already indie developers out there committed to bringing more of them to PSVR2 really warms my cold dead heart. Afterlife is getting great reviews on Steam, so this budget title looks like a day one purchase for me. Despite my personal complaints after the fall, getting a second chance on PSVR2 sounds great. It'll thankfully be a free upgrade for owners of the PSVR1 version with improved graphics and controls, so hopefully we'll keep seeing content for this one years to come. This is one of the bigger mysteries on our list. Survios announced a few months back that they're working on an Aliens VR game that'll take place between the first 2 films, but so far we haven't even seen a screenshot of the action, which is why we're showing some footage from Alien Isolation right now. Hopefully they'll show something off soon. Developer Thirdverse might be on some of our shit list for how they treated Swords of Gargantua on PSVR1, but that aside, it's good to see them thriving and bringing not just 1, but 2 of their projects over to PSVR2, starting with Altair Breaker, a 4-player co-op action game. Alvo's the first, but certainly won't be the last PSVR1 game that'll be confirmed to be also coming to PlayStation VR2. Expect to hear about quite a few games getting visual upgrades or total overhauls to take advantage of both the next-gen specs and the new VR audience that PSVR2 will attract. Aftershow Games pulled the PSVR1 version of Among Us VR from their release calendar, removing one of the last big hopes we had for the year. We were collectively pretty disappointed. That said, I'm sure the player base would have been practically non-existent. So getting Among Us VR as a PSVR2 launch title, well, that's not a bad consolation prize, and at least we know it'll have a long, healthy life. Strange Game Studios of Honor and Duty fame is working on a VR space shooter inspired by the 8-bit classic. This footage of awesome asteroids is super early in development though, so when we get an updated look at it, we'll be certain to share it with you. Blacktop Hoops is a street ball-inspired multiplayer VR basketball game. Players can chain together flashy dribble tricks, shots, and high-flying dunks to finish off opponents around the globe in epic games of VR basketball. Black Trail is a first-person shooter set in an epic war in the Old West. Play as a bounty hunter and a native warrior. Follow their interwoven stories, use historic weapons, explore, escape, infiltrate, loot, adapt, survive, and fight as you chase newly discovered artifacts to change the fate of war. In Bloody Hell Hotel, you embody a vampire. You wake up from a coma that's lasted for centuries, only to find your once grand estate is now in ruins. So now, it's time to turn it into a prosperous hotel. There are shortages of food, supplies, and workforce. Luckily, underneath the estate lies a crypt and a system of caves. By foraging, farming, crafting, and fighting your way through a monster-infested dungeon, you'll find the resources you need to restore greatness to your mansion and turn it into a thriving hotel business. Developer VR Kiwi announced last week that they've got a version of their new PSVR1 game, Cave Digger 2, Dig Harder, in the works for PSVR2. It'll likely be a fairly straight port of the PC VR version with a few new additions to take advantage of PSVR2's haptics and adaptive triggers, but we haven't heard any specifics yet. When you first start out in Cities VR, you'll be in a large empty area, so you'll need to attract some citizens. Build some roads and connect them to the highways so that they can get in and out, and then make sure they have a place to work and spend their hard-earned money. This is the humble beginnings of your city. In time it'll grow and expand as more citizens want to move in and have more needs for you to provide. Welcome to Cosmonius High, an alien high school that's definitely completely free of malfunction. After crash landing your way into a memorable first day, you'll unlock powers, explore the halls, and discover the source of malfunctions to save the school from cosmic chaos. Play as the leader of an elite fire team through 60 campaign missions solo or in 4-player co-op. 39 types of weapons including pistols, rifles, throwables, and throwbackables, grenades, and sniper rifles with revolutionary scope mechanics give you plenty of options to dispatch 17 different types of enemies. You'll also engage with heavy artillery like helicopters and LAVs, so make sure you keep your head on a swivel. Okay, so we're probably going to refer to Switchback as Rush of Blood 2 until the end of time, but even though it looks similar, this time the horror takes place inside Supermassive's The Dark Pictures anthology, rather than the world of Until Dawn. Endure every bump, twist, turn, and drop as your cart speeds along the tracks with haptic feedback, bringing that roller coaster feeling to life. Gather your friends and battle the dark forces that have overtaken the world of Resolution Games' award-winning RPG dungeon crawler, Demeo. The next generation of tabletop adventures have arrived and completely upgraded to take advantage of PSVR2's 4K display, refresh rates, and controller haptics. The world of Distortion exists in a cyberpunk megacity in the near future. It's a world where technology is being abused and the citizens are being controlled by thought, and what's real is uncertain. The first-person shooter Distortion VR is still being planned for PSVR1, but the one-man dev team over at Outsource recently confirmed that it's also coming to PSVR2. Escape room horror game Do Not Open is leaning heavily into procedural generation, with each new run-through having a different house layout, key objects in different locations, plus unique puzzle codes with over 2 million different combinations. Each playthrough will be a complete experience from beginning to end, and even the plot will be a puzzle within itself. Another converted arcade classic to VR by Strange Game Studios, Dropship Commander is a single-player arcade game featuring 6 Lunar Lander-style maps, and the voice of one of our favorite game cats, Creeper Betty. Originally called The Vanishing Act, there's actually not a lot of information out there about Maze Theory's supposed PSVR2 launch title, now simply known as Engram. Though, according to the developers, the core premise of the game is exploring memories, and they're working on ways to, quote, achieve a heightened range of emotional experiences. The follow-up to Exorcist Legion VR is bound to be something a little bit different. While we haven't seen any screenshots yet, we do know that it'll be co-op, and strangely, isn't being developed by Wolf & Wood, who made the first game. This one seems like it was announced a little bit early, and honestly, I think what we all really want is a PSVR2 version of Phasmophobia, which I personally think could be in the works as well. For anyone wondering if Firewall Zero Hour would be playable on PSVR2, the developers recently kind of answered that question with their new game, Firewall Ultra. It's technically a new game with dedicated servers, rounds, and everything else that gamers have been asking for, but is also looking to include improved and expanded versions of all your favorite maps, weapons, and contractors. I think we all know that Cyan Worlds makes great games, Myst, Riven, Abduction, but their last PSVR1 port was just an absolute mess with insanely blurry graphics and load screens every 5 seconds. Not to mention forced teleportation and blinders. So hopefully with the power of the PlayStation 5 and PSVR 2, they'll be able to deliver the immersive experience we all want when Firmament comes our way. Developer VR Monkey recently revealed that their formerly PSVR 1 bound game Galaxy Kart is now slated instead for PSVR 2. It's focused on combat and unique skills for each driver. We're still waiting to see and learn more about Endream's next game, Ghostbusters VR. We know it's multiplayer. Actually, I think that's all we know. But luckily it's coming to us from a studio we have a lot of faith in, and we're definitely looking forward to seeing some actual gameplay and hearing about the moment-to-moment stuff when they drop their next trailer. In Ghosts of Tabor, missions can be attempted solo or co-op in a 4-person squad. Missions are comprised of collecting intel, surviving, finding equipment for vendors, and other tasks. Besides mission objectives, players can scavenge for equipment, resources, and rare items, such as souvenirs. Golf Plus is currently the only golf game announced for PSVR 2, so it's also the best one by default. And it looks okay, I guess, but its Oculus roots are obvious, making me really hope that developer Claphands are trying their hand at another Everybody's Golf VR, but with multiplayer, more courses, and far less catty interactions. Confirmed for a late 2023 release, Green Hell VR adds multiplayer to the survival genre, with a ton of resources to gather, crafting, and obviously hunting. We're fully expecting the PSVR2 release to be a conversion of the full PC original, rather than the truncated Quest port that just got released. Grimoire is a dark fantasy action RPG built for VR. Use every type of weaponry and armament with full customization and limitless movesets to annihilate anyone who dares to stand between you and your destiny. Mr. Peterson's creepy house takes on a new level of immersion in VR, and there's nothing quite as scary as actually seeing that familiar shadow tower over you just before everything goes black. In Hello Neighbor Search and Rescue, you'll return to that house and take on the role of 6 little neighborhood heroes as they confront their fears to free their friend who's held captive in a bizarre basement prison. And Deep Type Games has taken us on a ride with Hellsplit Arena. First it was coming to PSVR, and then it wasn't, and then it was, and now, well, it's not. But it is coming to PSVR2, according to the developers. It's an arena fighter similar to Blade and Sorcery and Swordsman, so by the time it hits PlayStation VR2, hopefully it still has the chops to compete. Since the last time we updated this list, we've gotten so much more information about Horizon Call of the Mountain. Developers have stated it's roughly 7 to 8 hours long, and everyone who's gone hands-on with this PSVR2 exclusive walks away extremely impressed by not only the stunning environments, but also the implementation of adaptive triggers and haptics in the headset, all of which add to the immersion. In Hubris, you'll take on the role of a recruit in training to become an agent of the mighty and feared Order of Objectivity, also known as the Triple O. Together with pilot Lucia, you're sent to the planetoid belt of the Twin Planet system to search for the mysterious agent Cyanna. You'll have to use all of your agility and strength to survive the harsh environments and wildlife on a planet which is being terraformed. Hyperstacks is a frantic, action, puzzle, platformer, sandbox VR game combined with a very powerful level editor that offers unlimited gameplay in VR. Create levels, play other people's levels, and get colorful skins and meet every character from the campaigns. Crash landing on Isla Nublar after the fall of Jurassic World, you'll find yourself trapped in a research facility when your mission to recover valuable information goes disastrously wrong. To survive, you'll need to explore and solve puzzles while distracting and evading the 3 ferocious velociraptors that stalk your every move. Kayak VR Mirage is a realistic physics-based simulation with asynchronous multiplayer and casual free roam modes, but above and beyond anything else, it looks simply stunning, a perfect match for PSVR 2. From the minds at Funktronic Labs comes a new single-player roguelike experience filled with immersive gunplay and moody mystery. The world lies in ruins, and with each passing day, the light grows dimmer. Only you can offer the world a glimmer of hope. Lawn is a first-person VR story action-adventure game with realistic physics. The year is 2058, and mankind is increasingly eclipsed with cybernetic beings. Use telekinetic abilities, weapons, and objects to unleash destruction and obliterate the dystopian force that is Wuxen. Built as a completely open and non-linear cyberpunk world, Lo-Fi lets you play however you want. You can build and earn credits by patrolling the skies and handing out tickets, hanging out in the arcade and playing games, or trying your luck at the casino. There's also weapons and weapon upgrades, and everyone who's played the early builds of this one comes away fairly impressed. Lead developer on Lo-Fi, Blair Renaud, has said it's coming to PlayStation VR 2, and from what we've seen, it seems like a perfect fit. Madison is a first-person psychological horror game that delivers an immersive and terrifying experience. With the help of an instant camera, connect the human world with the beyond, take pictures and develop them by yourself. Solve puzzles, explore your surroundings, but most importantly, survive. A massive medieval open 3D world awaits, so be aware of harsh winters and unexpected events while honing your skills to turn from a medieval survivor into the ruler of a dynasty. Grab your axe, hammer, or hunting bow and craft your legacy. Okay, we're genuinely excited about Medieval Dynasty VR, but if we're reading this correctly, it seems like the game is getting a Quest 2 port and then being brought over to PSVR2, which is worrying for obvious reasons. Mixture follows an exiled knight who traverses dangerous, barren worlds of living metals, ores, and crystals to find the means of redemption. To achieve it, she reluctantly strikes a pact and is joined by a power-hungry master alchemist who can twist the properties of elemental matter. Together they form a force to be reckoned with, making Mixture a VR self-co-op, a single-player game where you play as two characters simultaneously, with a heart-gripping story and morally ambiguous characters. Neolithic Dawn is an open-world primitive survival game built exclusively for VR. Play as a lineage of 10,000 BC hunters and gatherers on a journey too great for one lifetime. Fight prehistoric beasts or tame them to aid in your survival. It shouldn't come as a huge surprise that No Man's Sky will have PSVR2 support. Over the years, the team at Hello Games has updated their game pretty much constantly, even being one of the few PS5 games that's fully playable on PSVR1. We're expecting this to be a massive upgrade in the graphics department, but also for it to take full advantage of the adaptive triggers and haptic feedback in the Sense controllers and headset. Back in March of last year, Bankrupt Games revealed that their modern military multiplayer shooter Pavlov VR would be coming to PlayStation VR2, making it one of the first games confirmed for Sony's new VR headset. The news came on the heels of Bankrupt CEO confirming that they'd become a PlayStation partner, and then followed it up with the news that when it launches on PSVR2, it'll be crossplay with the Quest versions as well. For a while now, developer Cloudhead Games has been talking about getting into, or I guess back into, depending on how you look at it, the AAA VR gaming space. But that hasn't kept them from taking care of their loyal fans, because on a recent PlayStation blog post they announced that Pistol Whip will be hitting PSVR2, and say it with me, with a free upgrade. Proudly inspired by games such as Resident Evil or Silent Hill, the Bounds VR puts you into a mansion surrounded by the swamps of New Orleans, investigating your daughter's disappearance. Move around and explore the floors of the once luxurious Paradise Hotel, now in an apocalyptic setting using advanced game mechanics, realistic weapon handling, self-healing, environment searching, puzzles, along with a dynamic map and inventory. Requisition VR is a 4-player online co-op survival game set in a post-apocalyptic world. Run, fight, and survive in single player or in 4-player co-op. Explore abandoned houses and territories, finding guns, knives, and other weapons that you can craft from any object in the house, from toasters to screwdrivers. If you've been following along since State of Play, you already know the controversy surrounding Resident Evil 4. At the end of the original trailer, Capcom showed a few first-person scenes and stated that PSVR2 content is in development. That segment of the trailer was later stripped out of both the PlayStation and Capcom's YouTube channels, and during Capcom's showcase, they didn't even mention it. So what's happening? Hopefully, we'll know more at Sony's next event, which sounds like it could be happening sooner, rather than later. Resident Evil Village had been so heavily rumored for PSVR2 for so long that when Sony finally showed it off at their last State of Play, it felt like breathing a huge sigh of relief. Plus, Capcom has been adamant that it's VRAF, with the ability to toss weapons from one hand to another, push open doors with your hands, and more. So, for everyone who put off playing Village hoping for a PSVR2 version, well, our excitement for this potential launch title is at an all-time high. Developer Truant Pixel, previously known for their arcade hit 2MD VR Football, is taking a stab at something a little different with PSVR2. In their new game Runner, an obvious homage to Akira, an anime from the late 80s, you're trying to escape a futuristic city on motorcycle, taking down waves of enemies and bosses as you weave in and out of traffic through 7 cyberpunk dystopian levels. Developer Skydance Interactive recently revealed that, along with their sequel Retribution, The Walking Dead Saints & Sinners Chapter 1 will also be hitting PlayStation VR 2. It's hard not to get excited about this considering that Saints & Sinners is one of the best games on the platform, so upgrading it with high-end PC visuals and adaptive triggers will be great for everyone out there, picking up a VR headset for the first time. The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners Chapter 2 Retribution looks to take the formula of one of the best VR games ever made and blow it out of the water with more story, more items to craft, boss fights, more weapons, including a much requested chainsaw to take down the undead with, not to mention the new French Quarter setting, making Chapter 2 seem less like glorified DLC and far more like the full-fledged sequel we were hoping for. Samurai Slaughterhouse is looking great with an artistic style somewhat reminiscent of the Wii classic Mad World. Think Swordsman VR, but with NPCs and quests, and you're starting to get the right idea. The one-man team at Tab Games has been hard at work on this one for a while, and reportedly even met with Sony to make Samurai Slaughterhouse a PSVR2 pack-in game. So whether that ends up being the case or not, we should be seeing this one on PlayStation VR2 around launch. The first book in the Shadowgate saga, Shadowgate VR, The Mines of Mythrock, brings the hit adventure series to virtual reality. You can now step into the fantasy world of Cal Torlin like never before, immersing yourself completely in this exciting action-adventure game. With Odin the Raven as your guide and 4 difficulty levels to fit your playstyle, it's time to discover what secrets await within the Mines of Mythrock. This footage of Soul of Kairu is admittedly extremely early in development, but it's great to see an indie studio try their hand at the Moss-style formula. Third-person games in VR have their own unique charm, so hopefully Soul of Kairu can deliver something special. Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy's Edge is an action-adventure experience where you'll take on the role of droid repair technician operating near the Outer Rim. When a group of pirates attack you on Batuu, you'll discover that anyone in the galaxy can become a hero. Fight alongside classic characters like R2-D2 and C-3PO, and take on unexpected alliances and deadly enemies. Recently, developer Tenderclaws, who you probably recognize from their work on virtual reality, just announced a new Stranger Things game coming to PSVR2 late next year. Play as Vecna in this new psychological horror action-adventure in VR. Invade minds and conjure nightmares in your quest to enact revenge on Eleven and Hawkins. One of the biggest disappointments we've had recently on PSVR was the VR version of Suicide Guy. The flat screen version is a charming puzzler where you try to kill yourself, something that initially seems really dark, but it's in order to wake up and save your beer from falling off a couch. But the VR implementation was absolute garbage, so hopefully the PSVR2 upgrade will fix all of our problems. Sin Studio recently announced that their hit melee combat game Swordsman VR will be making its way from PSVR1 to PSVR2 at the headset's launch. There's currently no word on whether there'll be an upcharge for the upgrade, but suffice it to say, we're going to be extremely happy to play this one in 4K with some new controllers. Raised among humans on the bustling and eccentric world of La Calma, the time has finally come to unravel the secrets of your mysterious origin. Help your human friends to research a strange and incredibly powerful energy source. Make progress by solving a colossal mix of action-based activities and physical construction puzzles which unlock elements for your very own playground. We invite you to face your fears in a disturbing and mind-bending series of adventures, all taking place within the Twilight Zone. This game features elements of stealth, shooting, escape mechanics, and eye-popping visuals. And although once planned for PSVR 1, it seems unlikely we'll ever get that version at this point, leaving the PlayStation faithful waiting for the PSVR 2 version. Ultra Wings was an early favorite on PSVR 1, so when developer BitPlanet Games announced their sequel for PSVR 2, there was reason to be excited. Like any good sequel, there's more of everything, and this time the game features a ton of optional combat missions. We are hoping, though, that it gets a full visual overhaul before this built for Quest 2 game hits PlayStation VR 2. Face 5 unforgiving pilots and, if you're worthy, fight a near unbeatable giant boss. Improve your skills in 12 challenging areas that'll test all aspects of your piloting in Volcanic Core. Featuring roguelike and RPG elements, Wandering in Space is a first-person shooter where you control a survivor in a wrecked spaceship, create powerful builds with various weapons and special abilities, and defy death to fight mutants and armed survivors. In X8, a 5v5 hero shooter, a digital cataclysm has forced a reboot of all contemporary shooters. Heroes from different FPS franchises find themselves crossing paths back to their common ancestor game engine. Players will compete across several maps to restore their source worlds and rebuild their path home. Despite being just one of many MMOs in development during the PSVR1 era, Zenith was the only one to ever launch, and lucky for us, it was fantastic. Like any MMO, it still has a ways to go content-wise, but that's all coming, and the fact that it's also coming to PSVR2 with a free upgrade means we're going to be playing this one for a very, very long time. A lot of developers have confirmed they have PSVR2 games in development, but aren't quite ready to tell us exactly what they're working on. Strange Game Studios of Honor and Duty fame have an aerial combat game in the works with a huge focus on multiplayer, and possibly plans for co-op missions. Pistol Whip developers claiming they have next-gen VR games in the works with deeper scope and vision compared to what's come before. Coatsink Games, who most recently made Jurassic Park Aftermath, says they have a PSVR2 launch title in development, though details on that are extremely scarce. Job listings have suggested that Firespray, makers of The Persistence, have a AAA horror game in development, which is guaranteed to be a hybrid title. But that's only scratching the surface. Pretty much everyone from Vitruvius VR to End Dreams and Fast Travel Games are teasing big incoming announcements for PSVR2 as well. So stay tuned, the next few months are going to be epic. Okay, so that's it for now, but let's be honest, this list is bound to be outdated within just a matter of weeks, so I'll do my best to keep it updated with every new major announcement that we get. Thanks for watching, I'll see you soon.